Strumming that bass is nice. This morning I'm going to talk about not all 7, but I'm going to start off talking about the 7 myths of giving. And it's probably more than that, and I may add to them or delete from them as I go along. But it's going to be a 2-week series, okay? And hopefully it'll be different enough that you'll want to come back next week, all right? And that you won't walk out of here feeling like guilty or anything like that, because that's not the purpose. And nor will it be the idea behind this, as you'll find out. One of the things that David talked about was giving from his heart. You see, from his heart, he had this desire to tithe. The 10% wasn't as important as what he wanted to do from his heart. Please understand it, because I'm going to say some things about tithing that may surprise you. How many people were raised up in a faith where it said you give 10%? How many people were raised up in a faith where it says if you don't give 10%, you're guilty? Oh, wow. And those who weren't, I bless you, okay? God bless you. Because I was raised up with that. And I had a person who joined Unity a while back, not at this church, another church, and he came in and shared a story with me. And he said that one of the things that happened was that he went to a church, and this guy's a pretty good Bible scholar. And he said he went to a church and it made him change his mind about going to that church anymore. Because what the minister was giving a message on tithing, and the minister said, if you don't tithe before you pay your electric bill, then you are sinning against God. Yes, I agree with you, okay? And then the minister went on to support that with biblical references, which I think is kind of hard to do. And I want to talk about that a little bit because, you see, we have a standard of giving that's called a tithe, 10% of gross income. Now, if you're doing that and that's what you want to do, God bless you. I have no problem with that. Vicki and I probably tithe somewhere between 15 and 25% of our income each year, depending on what's going on. Now, we're blessed to be able to do that. And our life is good. Not because we do that, because we want to do that. So, a tithe is different for us than it might be for others. And there's some folks who feel their tithes could be 5%, 4%, 3%, $20 a week, $1 a week, whatever it happens to be. And if they're making a concerted effort to let that come from the heart, that decision, then whatever they're giving is fine. The tithe in the Old Testament is based on 2 or 3 things, but 2 in particular. One was that the first tithe ever given was by Abraham. And he gave it to Melchizedek, thank you, a tenth of the spoils of a victory. He went to battle, and he gave 10% of the spoils of the victory. And so ministers now say, oh, because he gave that 10%, we ought to give 10%. Abraham also said that if somebody comes to your door, you should feed them meat and curds and milk. So, if that's what he said, should we also be doing that? It doesn't hold water from the standpoint that something Abraham does holds every generation thereafter to that standard, because things change. In the last number of years, I've been going through quite a change in my own thinking. I used to really believe the tithe was 10%. I don't believe that anymore. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody who does that because they're doing it from their heart. I've never met anybody who tithes 10%, not in this community or in El Paso, who did not do it from their heart and wanted to continue to do it because in some kind of way they felt blessed. Maybe with not more, but they just felt blessed because they were giving from their heart. And then there's the statement in Malachi, bring 10% into the storehouse. And boy, is that one ever quoted. I joke with my Unity ministers and I say, you know what? You interpret the whole Bible metaphysically except bring 10% into the storehouse. All right? I love that. They don't laugh as much as you do when I say it. But anyway, but metaphysically, you have to understand that story. What was happening is people in that community were stealing from the storehouse. They were actually taking out of it and stealing money from it. Or not even money, they were mostly supplies at that time. And so what happened is that Malachi was saying, hey, you need to bring 10% into the storehouse for your future day. Now, metaphysically, the way that could be interpreted is pay yourself 10% on a regular basis so you create a storehouse. The storehouse is not the church. That's a misunderstood myth. However, let's look at what Charles Fillmore said. And I was hoping to get a little relief from Charlie. And he's a co-founder of Unity, by the way. I know that's irreverent. But anyway, he said, giving a tenth of one's supply to God and His work, it is a tacit agreement that one is in a financial partnership with God. Jesus said, freely you receive, freely you give. Now, I agree with everything but the percentage, okay? But I think the percentage is arbitrary. Jesus said, talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and this is when Jesus kind of got on people's cases, maybe a little judgment in this, okay? Good judgment, but judgment. And he said, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. When we give for various reasons, other than faith, other than opening up avenues for justice, other than helping others who need help, other than creating a message and supporting that message, then we are living in the myth and the myths of tithing and giving. And that blocks our abundance individually. For example, you've probably heard this before. Give and you will get rich. My minister used to say that. Give and you'll get rich. You'll get 10 times what you are supposed to get. And I used to give $10 and I thought I was going to get 100 and it never came in. Just couldn't put the two together. And it's because, you see, if I gave expecting something of that nature, then it actually stops my flow, does not increase my flow. Because I put a limit on it, number one. And also, I've been taught over the years that if you give 10%, you won't have any money problems. Well, brother, if you want to go through my financial life, I'll guarantee you that's not true. Okay? I mean, I gave for a long time. I've given more than 10% of my income for years. However, I did a little differently before I came into Unity. What I would do is at the end of the month, if there was some money left over, then I would decide to give it to wherever I was worshiping. And sometimes that was pretty good because I was fortunate enough to make a fairly large income at one point in my life. But it wasn't a tithe. Because I was saying, I'll take care of my kids, which is good. I'll take care of all my electric bills. I'll buy myself a car. I'll buy some nice clothes. I'll do whatever I have this month. And if I have anything left over, it's yours, God. That's the way I thought at that time. And that's not really a tithe at all. That's not a gift, if you want to put it that way. That's the way I want to use the word. It's not a gift at all. What it is, okay, I got plenty, so I'll give you a little bit. And there's a difference in what I'm willing to say. It's like I don't trust the creative process. I don't trust God enough to give and then assume that everything else will be taken care of in my life. And so I had to change my thinking. When I first changed my thinking, Vicki and I were in El Paso, Texas. And from our house over to the church, there was a mountain. And we went through the pass. And one Sunday, we were riding back on the pass, and I turned to Vicki and said, I really have a calling in my heart that we should tithe. And Vicki said, who's we? True statement, isn't it? And it was, and I got the message. And anyway, but I could, which is fine. And what happened, though, over time, Vicki started to understand that message and started to give from her heart. She just wasn't ready at that time. There wasn't anything wrong with what she was saying. She was just being more analytical and more realistic about our living conditions at that time. And at the same time, over the next couple of years, she started to give more than I was able to give as a percentage of income, because God had blessed her so greatly in the work she was doing. And I think it's because she went into that work saying, who can I serve? Who can I serve? Not how much money I can make. So it goes in a lot of different ways. And so one of the things is this high idea of if you give expecting something back, then it really confuses you. Now, I got a guy by the name of Toby that I want you to meet this morning. Toby's an animated figure. He talks to Jesus, and Jesus shows up sometime. And I love this Jesus. You're going to see it in this film. And Toby has an experience of giving something, and you'll see what he is expecting.
Good grief, little Johnny. What do you think you're doing? Yeah, little Johnny, you spoil everything.
Wait. Let's get crunching!
Remember, Toby, if you let it go,
It will reproduce itself many times over. Hello. Johnny, is it? So, I understand you're a fan of Colonel Jack. Well, anyway, you can have mine. I've got Colonel Jack! Good, Johnny. You've got... It's Colonel Jack! He must be one of the luckiest guys alive. Can I see him, Johnny? I got him here. Can I see him, Bruce? I'm the biggest Colonel Jack fan ever. Did you find him in the trash, Johnny? Who would be crazy enough to throw that away? Peace and justice and delicious wholesome breakfast with vinegar and irons. Everybody Colonel Jack is dead!
So Toby gave his favorite toy away. Why did he give it away? Because he wanted a lot more, right? That's what he envisioned. And if we're not careful, we can do the same thing. I'm going to give so I can get. And I am going to suggest to you that when we do that, we are blocking our prosperity. We're tripping over ourselves. And so this idea is that Toby was very upset. Everybody was happy but Toby. Did you notice that? And so Toby has a little visit from Jesus, and I want you to see this.
Oh, what's that you got there?
Oh, Colonel Jack.
hey, little man. Hey, little man.
Well done. Well
Well
done.
done. Well done. Well done. Well done. What do you mean by well done? Jesus, I did what you said. I let go. In fact, I gave away the coolest thing I ever had. But I got nothing in return. No multiplication, no toys, nothing. I got ripped off.
Ripped off.
What are you talking about?
Just look at those kids. Go on. Look.
Remember the episode when he
Look.
gas grenade. Jack always looks for solution, resorting to boring. Come on, men, follow me. Okay. I'm taking a car.
Look at Johnny. He's happy.
Come on, guys. Come on, let's go back and do it again.
Heads up!
Brilliant. Did you see that? So cool. It's more than cool. It's cooler.
You mean cool, Rooney?
So, what happens sometimes is we feel like Toby. If we're not careful. We feel like we've been ripped off. If we give expecting something in return, especially expecting that which we give to come back at us and for us. And so, the myth is that when I do that, I'm not giving from the heart, I'm giving from the head. I'm giving because I want something. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something. It's just according to what my motive is when I give. And so I can release and let go of that myth. And when I do, I run into another one. Give and you will receive tenfold in return. You've heard that, right? We've had speakers here who've sat here and said, if you give, you get tenfold. And somebody said, but should I give 10% of my income? We go, well, if you give 10%, you get a tenfold. If you give 5%, you get a tenfold. Which would you rather have? The tenfold of 5 or the tenfold of 10? Right? Now, those are nice, convincing thoughts, and they're true in some ways in the universe. But again, it's how I do it and not doing it for that expectation. Let me show you what happened to Toby when he gave, expecting nothing in return.
Oh, what's that you got there?
Tasty flavored wheat things. Oh, Colonel Jack and the Cracker Commando's tasty flavored wheat things.
Jack and the Crack Commando's tasty flavored wheat things.
Yeah, I love those things. They're cool.
They're cool. Rooney.
Toby?
Well, Jesus. Colonel Jack says, if I want to be a man of action like him, I at least need to eat one box of wheat things a week. I just have to eat Jesus. Colonel's order.
Well, if you could spare just one, I'll show you something really cool.
Just one.
Yep.
Even cooler than wheat things.
Yep.
Well, okay. But just one.
Just watch.
Just watch.
What's it supposed to do?
Nothing. It's just a bit of
Grain in the ground.
But if we bury it and give it some love and some time and some more time and maybe a little bit more time.
Whoa! How are you doing it?
Keep watching. Just keep watching, little man. Look, you see, Toby. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world. It's never more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts. It reproduces many times over. And so, in the same way, anyone who holds on to life, just as it is, well, he destroys that life. But if you let it go, and you're reckless in your love, well, you'll have it forever. Real and eternal.
So when you let it go and you're reckless in your love, it does not multiply tenfold. That's a myth. It multiplies more than tenfold. When you are reckless and you let your consciousness grow, then that consciousness doesn't just grow in you, it grows throughout the planet. When you are reckless and you let your love give, then you share with others, and then they are able to share with others. No strings attached. When you give from your heart, you are giving recklessly because you're saying, I trust the universe, I trust my Creator, I trust God, whatever words you want to use, to sustain any need that I have. And help me to understand, this is what happens for me, that I have some needs that I think I don't have. And so I have to understand that sometimes I have to change my habits in order to help my good come to me. Either financially, in relationships, in my work, I've got to change my habits if I want my good to come through me. But when I do that, what I am doing multiplies more than tenfold. You know, as I've looked at this whole process, one of the things that Paul said was that each of you must give as you have made up your mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Nowhere can you find Paul, nowhere can you find Jesus using the word tithe unless it's negative in nature. Interesting enough. So there's nothing in the New Testament that supports this idea of tithing. There's nothing in the New Testament that says, give and you will receive exactly what you expected to get back. There's nothing that says, give, not just believing it says that, but there's nothing that says, give and have an expectation when you give and you'll be taken care of. All of it says, and Jesus said that, trust. Give because you believe in something. Give because you want to make a difference in life. As I look at giving to the storehouse or giving to Unity of Richmond, there are a couple of things I'd like to share with you. Please don't feel that you have to do that. there'll be enough people who will give to the unity of Richmond, who want to do that we're going to be fine. We're like any other church. We have our great months. We have our off months. We have our quarters that are struggling kind of months. But so far, especially in the last few years, we've always been able to pay our bills and to pay some down even. That's what's been happening for the last 2 or 3 years, even with the capital campaign. And you won't hear me get up and say you need to give to this church to help us meet a need. I might say, if your heart says that you'd like to give because you want the mortgage paid off quicker, get in the pathway to payoff, that's fine, but I'm not saying you've got to. You have to do that because you're called to, because you want to, because your heart is open to it. And I think we as ministers, Vicki and myself and Peggy and our staff, have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to create an atmosphere of love. We have a responsibility to recreate an atmosphere where things are safe. We have a responsibility to create an atmosphere where we can agree and disagree with love. We have a responsibility to be good stewards of what comes in. We have a responsibility to share our love with you as you share your love with us. We have a responsibility, I think, to share the message and to model the message that we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience in this human body. And when we do that and follow that responsibility, we don't have to worry about giving. Because people will give because they will want that message to grow more than tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold, a worldwide fold, if you would. So we have a responsibility to you. You have no responsibility to us. Now, I want you to write that down because you're not going to hear that in many churches in America. Okay? Give as your heart guides you. But pray about it. Think about it. So you can make the right decision. Because when you do, you heard David. It feels good. It just feels natural. And you feel okay. And then you start to see the gifts of your giving coming back in so many ways that you would never dream of, because you have now opened the door to prosperity. You've opened your life to prosperity by giving to others. Wherever you are called to give, give. And you will be blessed. Open your heart. Open your mind. And when you do that, and excuse this statement, but you will be able to open your pocketbook in the right and perfect way. God bless you. Thank you.